Knowledge will forever govern ignorance, and a people who mean to be their own governors must arm themselves with the power which knowledge gives. Liberty may be endangered by the abuse of liberty, but also by the abuse of power. If tyranny and oppression come to this land, it will be in the guise of fighting a foreign enemy. The advancement and diffusion of knowledge is the only guardian of true liberty. It will be of little avail to the people that the laws are made by men of their own choice if the laws be so voluminous that they cannot be read, or so incoherent that they cannot be understood. The essence of government is power, and power, lodged as it must be in human hands, will ever be liable to abuse. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. The truth is that all men having power ought to be mistrusted. The purpose of separation of church and state is to keep forever from these shores the ceaseless strife that has soaked the soil of Europe with blood for centuries. In framing a government which is to be administered by men over men, you must first enable the government to control the governed, and in the next place oblige it to control itself. A well-instructed people alone can be permanently a free people. As long as the reason of man continues fallible, and he is at liberty to exercise it, different opinions will be formed. The happy union of these states is a wonder, their constitution a miracle, their example the hope of liberty throughout the world. A popular government without popular information or the means of acquiring it, is but a prologue to a farce, or a tragedy, or perhaps both. No nation could preserve its freedom in the midst of continual warfare. Wherever there is interest and power to do wrong, wrong will generally be done. To suppose that any form of government will secure liberty or happiness without any virtue in the people, is a chimerical idea. The circulation of confidence is better than the circulation of money. America was indebted to immigration for her settlement and prosperity. That part of America which had encouraged them most had advanced most rapidly in population, agriculture, and the arts. Philosophy is common sense with big words. The operations of the federal government will be most extensive and important in times of war and danger, those of the state governments, in times of peace and security. I believe there are more instances of the abridgment of freedom of the people by gradual and silent encroachments by those in power than by violent and sudden usurpations. In republics, the great danger is, that the majority may not sufficiently respect the rights of the minority. A sincere and steadfast cooperation in promoting such a reconstruction of our political system as would provide for the permanent liberty and happiness of the United States. All men having power ought to be distrusted to a certain degree. Religious bondage shackles and debilitates the mind and unfits it for every noble enterprise, every expanded prospect. Of all the enemies of public liberty, war is perhaps the most to be dreaded, because it comprises and develops the germ of every other. A man has a property in his opinions and the free communication of them. The class of citizens who provide at once their own food and their own raiment, may be viewed as the most truly independent and happy. Despotism can only exist in darkness, and there are too many lights now in the political firmament to permit it to remain anywhere, as it has heretofore done, almost everywhere. The rights of persons, and the rights of property, are the objects, for the protection of which government was instituted. The Constitution preserves the advantage of being armed which Americans possess over the people of almost every other nation where the governments are afraid to trust the people with arms. Ambition must be made to counteract ambition. By rendering the labor of one, the property of the other, they cherish pride, luxury, and vanity on one side, on the other, vice and servility, or hatred and revolt. To the press alone, checkered as it is with abuses, the world is indebted for all the triumphs which have been gained by reason and humanity over error and oppression. Each generation should be made to bear the burden of its own wars, instead of carrying them on, at the expense of other generations. Commercial shackles are generally unjust, oppressive, and impolitic. The number, the industry, and the morality of the priesthood, and the devotion of the people have been manifestly increased by the total separation of the church from the state. The internal effects of a mutable policy poisons the blessings of liberty itself. Every nation whose affairs betray a want of wisdom and stability may calculate on every loss which can be sustained from the more systematic policy of its wiser neighbors. Union of religious sentiments begets a surprising confidence. Religion flourishes in greater purity, without than with the aid of government. Whenever a youth is ascertained to possess talents meriting an education which his parents cannot afford, he should be carried forward at the public expense. The means of defense against foreign danger historically have become the instruments of tyranny at home. As a man is said to have a right to his property, he may be equally said to have a property in his rights. Let me recommend the best medicine in the world, a long journey, at a mild season, through a pleasant country, in easy stages. What is government itself but the greatest of all reflections on human nature? And I have no doubt that every new example will succeed, as every past one has done, in showing that religion and government will both exist in greater purity, the less they are mixed together. Where an excess of power prevails, property of no sort is duly respected. No man is safe in his opinions, his person, his faculties, or his possessions. The people are the only legitimate fountain of power, and it is from them that the constitutional charter, under which the several branches of government hold their power, is derived. A well-regulated militia, composed of the body of the people, trained in arms, is the best most natural defense of a free country. The diversity in the faculties of men, from which the rights of property originate, is not less an insuperable obstacle to an uniformity of interests. The protection of these faculties is the first object of government. A pure democracy is a society consisting of a small number of citizens, who assemble and administer the government in person. We are right to take alarm at the first experiment upon our liberties. Which quotation do you like the most? Don't forget to subscribe.